Hi students, in this video I am going to talk about gross domestic product, national income and money. So to start with gross domestic product, which we all know by the abbreviation of GDP, is nothing but the value of all final goods and services produced within an economy, for example, within a country, and in a given period of time, for example, 1 year. And the term value in this definition, value of all final goods and services, refers to the market prices at which goods and services are sold. And the term final goods and services here, the final here means that the good is ready for its designated ultimate use, and the goods and services produced within an economy refers to final goods and services. Now this GDP can be viewed in two different ways. One, as the total income of everyone involved in the economy. Two, as the total expenditure on the economy's output of goods and services. In other words, GDP can be calculated from the total income of everyone involved in the economy, or it can also be calculated from the total expenditure for the purchase of uh, goods and services produced within an economy. So GDP is equal to either total income of everyone or equal to total expenditure. So GDP is not total income plus total expenditure. So you should try to uh, remember this difference. So GDP is either total income or total expenditure. Therefore, GDP is a measure of both national income and national expenditure. And this is because for the economy as a whole, income must equal expenditure. And this also follows from the fundamental viewpoint that because every transaction has a buyer and a seller, every nultum of expenditure by a buyer must become a nultum of income to a seller. And you can understand why GDP is either total of income or total of expenditure and not total of income plus expenditure from this example. So, for example, when a person A paints a person B's house for Newton 1000, then that Newton 1000 is an income to person A and an expenditure by person B. So the transaction contributes Newton 1000 to GDP. So it is not like uh, the person who paints uh, a house contributes 1000 and the person whose house is painted contributes Newton 1000. It is just Newton 1000 transaction that is happening between person A and person B. If you are counting the Newton 1000 earned by person A and Newton 1000 spent by person B, then you are actually double counting. Then it's a mistake. Then that is wrong. So therefore GDP is either equal to total income or total expenditure and not both, or not summation of total income and total expenditure. Therefore, whether we add up the aggregate expenditure on final goods and services or the value of aggregate income, for example, wages, rent, interest, and profit, we get the same GDP. Again, as mentioned before, this is because every Newton of spending by some buyer ends up being a Newton of income for some seller. So, in short, expenditure must equal income. And this is true whether it is a household, firm, or government that buys the goods or services. The main point is that when we spend, it ends up as someone's income. So you can also understand the concept of GDP from this simplified macroeconomic model called circular flow of economy. So in this simplified macroeconomic model, you can see there is one input, or there is only one factor of production, and there is only one goods produced here. So, and there are the households and the firms involved in the economy. And the GDP, calculation of GDP here is either the income earned by the household or the expenditure by the household here. It is not, GDP is not equal to the income here plus the expenditure here. No, GDP is either the income earned by the household here and the people and the owner of the firms are a part of the household here. So income here for the household may be in the form of wages and profit. So the income here will be equal to the wages earned by people contributing labor and the owner of the firms who are getting profit by providing their services to produce the goods, which is the bread here in this example. So you can, from this circular flow model of economy, you can see that GDP is either income or expenditure, not both. GDP income plus expenditure, because whatever income the household are earning is becoming an expenditure here. It is not like there is an income here to the household and then the households are spending money from uh, somewhere else. The household expenditure for the purchase of goods, for example, the bread here from the farm here is coming from the income that is earned from the farm here. So this expenditure, the source of expenditure is not, it's coming from the income here and not coming from some other sources. So that is why GDP would be either the total of income or the total of expenditure, because the money flows in a circular fashion like this in an economy. So here is an example of how GDP is calculated from the point of view of expenditure. So you can see the total gross domestic product GDP in billions of dollars here, 13,807, and per person GDP here. So GDP is calculated by total of consumption plus investment plus government purchases plus net export, and the net export is given by the export minus import. So you can see the net export here minus 708, which is export minus import, so that is why it is minus here. So GDP from the point of view of expenditure is calculated by the total of consumption plus investment plus government purchases plus net export, and that is what you get here and here. Now to move on to gross national product. Gross national product is equal to the GDP plus factor payment from abroad minus factor payment to abroad. So GNP measures the total income earned by nationals wherever they are. For example, total income earned by all the Bhutanese, whether they are living in Bhutan or US. Whereas GDP measures the total income produced domestically, and GDP does not include the income earned by a Bhutanese in New York and owning an apartment in New York, for example. Okay, so GDP is the total income produced domestically, whereas GNP is the total income earned by the nationals anywhere in the world. For instance, if a Bhutanese resident owns if a Bhutanese resides in New York is residing in New York and owns an apartment building in New York, the rental income he earns is a part of US GDP, not the GDP of Bhutan, because it is earned in the United States, not earned in Bhutan. But this rental income is a factor payment from the US to Bhutan. So that is why it is not a part of US GNP but a part of Bhutan's GNP. So from this